You're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today we have a good show for you. We're going to be talking today about core wounds, and we're going to be doing it in a positive way. We're going to be doing this in a positive way, non-negative way, non-stressful way. I mean, why deal with stuff in a stressful manner when we can have some fun with it? And I know that, core wounds and fun, how do we get there? How do we make that happen? But you know what? I am going to make it happen. Right? Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to walk through this. We're going to have some fun doing it because guess what? Learning and growing and learning about ourselves and all that great stuff actually turns out to be something good, right? So over time, guess what? The more we learn, the more we grow. The more we grow, the happier we are. The happier we are. Heck, it's a great thing. It's waves, right? It's a ripple effect, It's paying it forward. Okay. So we're going to be talking about core wounds today. We're going to talk about some of the signs that you have unhealed core wounds today. And we're going to talk about the list of core wounds. It's great. Yeah. It's going to be really introspective. And I think that's enough for today. I don't think we have any more time. Dan's going to show up here later on in the hour. We're going to be talking about some of the history behind Eli Lilly. Obviously a large pharmaceutical corporation that makes a lot of pharmaceuticals. We're going to be talking about that and kind of the beginning of that company and the beginning of the lineage of how that began. So very interesting. So, okay. So let's begin with understanding what a core wound is, and that will be helpful. What I've realized that is, we all came from a family, right? We were all a child of someone. Okay, and so let's start off with the obvious. We're all a child of someone. Okay, so we figured that one out. We've solved one question today. If we do that, that's awesome. But no, we're gonna solve others. I swear, we're gonna come up with something better than that. Okay, so we're all a child of someone, right? And being a child of someone, we take on stuff, right? We take on stuff, and so. You can't be a child and be raised without having some stuff from that person or who raised you kind of rub off on you, right? Because that's normal, right? That's just the way it is. That's why it's important when you are able to pick your friends and all that great stuff to pick people who actually care about you and you actually care about them. And, that's why it's like, it's important to pick your friends, not their noses. Haha. Anyway, so the concept is really like, okay, you learn this stuff from your family. We get told things when we're growing up. These core wounds start in our childhood. They don't start later on down the road. It's not like they're old, like they're new things. They're kind of old. They've been around for a while, right? And it's interesting because I know that many of you listening, whether you're listening on USA radio networks around the country, on AM or FM component radio, or you're actually watching the live feed on social media, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, realize that, growing up was tough. Growing up is challenging. Being a child is challenging. Going through that process. Kids are mean. Kids are mean to each other. Some teachers are great. Some teachers are mean. Some situations are great, some situations aren't. And so what happens is we go through the process of we begin to experience what I consider punishment for being ourselves, right? We get punished to some degree. People disapprove of us of being ourselves, right? So that, think about it. Like when you were growing up, some of you ladies out there were tomboys, right? You were more tomboys. You didn't wear makeup. Maybe you got made fun of for not doing that. Some of the boys, some of you men out there, maybe you weren't great at sports. And that's kind of superficial right there. But at the same point, maybe your attitude was different, or the way that you looked, or what you liked, or all those types of things, because kids are cruel and a lot of people make comments that they don't realize how they impact us, right? And how they impact us, and how that impact within us, we carry that for a long period of time. Because remember, growing up, we were young, we were pure, we didn't have all these hang-ups, we believed that we could be whoever we wanted to. And so a lot of the deep-rooted core wounds go back to, self-rejection, a low self-esteem, right? Could be a high self-esteem to cover up something. Self-hatred, guilt, and some of this stuff can also be generational, right? Okay, so mom and dad could have felt it. Grandma and grandpa could have felt it. Great-grandma and grandpa could have felt it. You see what I'm saying? So it goes through the process. The teachings happen generation to generation. It gets handed down to us. Woo-hoo-hoo, yes! Not the gift that you want to get, but the gift that keeps on giving, and sometimes a negative way. So let's think about it. So let's look at this, because I think we need to jump into this to make sure, because I know some of you were like, I don't have any core wounds. Ashley's not speaking to me today. None of this applies to me. And if that's the case, I'm so happy for you. But I have a funny feeling that some of this does apply to you. Okay. So how do we know if a core wound is manifesting some way in our life? How do we know if this is happening? Okay. How do we know? So let's talk about this, because I think this might be helpful. One thing that I find when we have a core wound that we're not aware of is that one of the ways that it can manifest is that we're always our worst critic. So one of the ways that it can manifest is that we're constantly being our worst critic. We're constantly reminding ourselves of what a loser we are, or how much we failed, or how we can't just get it right. And it's interesting because when we're our worst critic, we're constantly putting ourselves down, right? Constantly putting ourselves down. Where do you think that comes from? It's not like you just you didn't order that at, Whole Foods, and order that one day, on a plate, and you took that on forever. This is a core wound. This goes back to, some of the stuff that we're talking about, which is that guilt, which is the fears, which was us being told that we're not good enough, or something happening big when we were being raised, or maybe somebody left us, or our family got divorced early, or whatever it looks like, or we were told that we're no good, or we're told that we're a loser, or we're told that we're not pretty, or we're told that we're ugly, or we're told that there's something wrong with us, right? Okay, I'm going to bring up the room a second. So in a positive way, we're going to learn about this today. It's not a scary thing. This is something that can really help us to understand, and it can be something that can really help us to figure out why we do what we do. Patterns are interesting. Many of us are in the same relationship patterns based on the fact that we have a core wound. Many of us are in the same relationship patterns at work because we have a core wound. Many of us keep picking the same type of friends that might not be our friends because of the core wound. Lots of things going on. Another indication that there's a core wound in your life is that you sometimes feel like you're not accepted. You sometimes feel like, the loner, the outcast. You feel like you just can't fit in with anyone, right? And so it's kind of like that unique quality of us. At a young age, some of those unique qualities got blasted out of the water, right? There's these unique qualities that were amazing that somebody made fun of, or a kid made fun of, or a teacher made fun of, or multiple people made fun of, right? And you're just like, oh, you're so down on it. You just want to fit in. At any cost, you want to fit in. Remember when we were in school, too, like in elementary school, middle school, like the last thing you wanted to do was stand out in a crowd, right? Nobody wanted to stand out in a crowd. And it's interesting, like growing up with my voice, right? I mean, that's challenging. And that's an example of, something that you can be made, that can be used against you because it's unique, right? It's a unique voice. I always wanted that cheerleader voice. You heard me say this multiple times. If you've ever followed anything that I've talked about, you know that. And it wasn't until the last 12 years that I started embracing my voice. And I remember it was interesting because, as a girl, you're made fun of because all these other girls in school all have this like high-pitched, really high-pitched cheerleader voice. It's so cute. They sound like Muppets. It's so high. It's so cute. And you want to have that voice, but you didn't. And there's no way to get it. And it's just your voice, and you can't change it. I mean, you could, I guess, but you're not going to be very real, authentic. And I still get comments on YouTube, and some people love my voice, or people make fun of it, hate it, can't stand it, don't want to hear it. You got the extremes, and you deal with that your whole life, and everybody has something like that, right? Everybody has something like that we have to persevere, because people will love you for that uniqueness. They will love you. And some people can't stand it. And they're going to tell you, especially when they can hide behind things and say what they want to say without being in your face. They're going to tell you stuff, right? It's amazing. Social media and, and the internet's made it easier for people to be able to say whatever they say, and there's no retaliation. And the interesting part about it, though, is we all have one of those unique qualities, right? We all have that. And a lot of times we get afraid because we don't want people to attack us for it. And see, a lot of times in school, you were attacked for it, right? A lot of times when you're in elementary school, middle school, attacked for it. Maybe you were really, really, really tall. Maybe you were a girl who's like 6 foot, right? Maybe you were a guy who's shorter. Maybe multiple things. Maybe you were born with 2 different color eye color. I mean, whatever it is. And you went through this. Maybe your hair was ultra curly and people would make fun of your hair. You know what I'm saying? All these different things that people make fun of that really, maybe you were really, really, really super smart, right? Maybe all these different things. Another indication is that you might have, is that there's a tendency, I think, to enter into relationships in the desire of finding something that we lack. Right? So we enter into relationships with other people trying to fill that void subconsciously. Now, this isn't conscious. Subconsciously trying to fill that void and hoping that the other person can complete us. And I've talked about that in a recent show about how, there's all these books, growing up about how, 2 halves make a whole. And there was actually a gentleman that told me the title of the book and actually reached out on YouTube to give me the title. And now it's gone out of my mind again. But I appreciate him for coming up with that. But, I just don't get that. I don't agree with that. I think that's fundamentally flawed. For 2 people to make a whole, no. It takes a whole person and another whole person for 2 people to come together, for 2 whole people to come together. And so one of the things is that, we're trying to be completed by somebody else. And basically that's because we're lacking something within ourselves. We feel like we're lacking something. Another indication is that we often feel like we are not adequate, that we don't have enough tools to do something, that we are not enough, right? I'm not lovable. I am not enough. I'm a bad person. I'm not a good person. I'm powerless. All of these feelings of feeling inadequate is usually what gets us into situations that hurt us, gets us into situations that are painful, gets us into situations that bring us pain and suffering, and then we do it again and again, right? Because when we feel inadequate, we do things not to our highest good. We try to fit in, we try to give a lot, we do all these different things to hope that people don't leave us or see that we're inadequate, all those things. And that's why this is one of the big indications that we're dealing with a core wound, right? Because that is a core wound at the core. If I don't believe that I'm good enough at the core, that's what a core wound is. You see what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, my hair looked bad today. It's not like, oh, whatever. I had a brain fart day. No, it's these depths of thoughts. And so when I return, I'm going to be talking more about this, more about these indications, as well as a list of the core wounds. Later in the hour, Dan Nelson will be here, and we'll be talking about the history of Eli Lilly, which will be kind of cool. And to understand that, it's always interesting. I don't know a lot of that history, so we'll find out. So stay tuned. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
You've heard me talking about My Pillow for 3 years, folks. It's the truth. I get the best sleep of my life with a My Pillow. You can do it too. 60-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty, made in the USA. You'll sleep well or you'll get your money back. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener special, use my promo code USA, get 2 MyPillow premium pillows for the price of 1, or call 1-800-951-8175. Get the best sleep of your life and do it now.
Money, 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 money. You gotta have it. When you need it, what do? If you don't have a rich uncle, call Lending Tree. With us, hundreds of banks compete for your business, so you'll get loans with competitive interest rates, and in some cases, with no closing costs. So here's the deal. If you need money, call us. Do you want to refinance your current loan? Are you 62 or older and interested in a reverse mortgage? Then call Lending Tree now. 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. We've closed over $250 billion in loans. We know what we're doing and can help you. Call right now for a free quote. 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. 800-634-1315. That's 800-634-1315. NMLS number 1136.
You've heard me talking about My Pillow for 3 years, folks. It's the truth. I get the best sleep of my life with a My Pillow. You can do it too. 60-day money-back guarantee.
Thank you, everybody,
10-year
for tuning
warranty,
in. I know
made
the
in
commercial's
USA.
running, so I won't
You'll
run and
sleep
talk
well,
over
or
it.
you'll get your money back.
I can
Go to
talk all over it. I
mypillow.com.
can turn the one
Click
off
on the
after this
radio
next one.
listener special. Use my promo
turn
code
it off.
USA. Get 2 My Pillow premium
Turn
pillows
it
for the
off.
price of one, or call 1-800-951-8175. Get the best sleep of your life and do it now.
It is interesting to see how the subjects on Ashley's True Life show and current events so often correlate with past events. As Ashley says, history often repeats
good.
itself. Our
That's awesome.
ancestors'
I like that comment.
genealogy research comes across great stories from the past that tie to families and our shared history regarding what happens in our country and our community. The ancestors' clients have had ancestors that were colonizers, explorers, founders of religions, gunslingers, kings and queens, knights, pirates, heroic soldiers, witches, and witch hunters. Let's find out who the characters are in your family tree. So please reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
Okie dokie. Couple more seconds before we go back on. Buddy's sleeping here in the studio on the couch.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Today we've been talking in a positive way about core wounds, how to know what our core wounds are and how to know when it's manifesting, and we'll be talking more about what core wounds are and which ones we can look at. But right before the break, I had brought up the fact that one of the main ways that core wounds manifest in our life is that we feel inadequate, right? We feel inadequate. We feel unlovable. We feel like we're not good enough. And, you know, we were born being good enough, right? But something changed. Something changed. Something changed. Something was brought to our attention. Something was told to us. Maybe over and over again, maybe just a few times, about how there was something wrong that we did, or something that we weren't good enough at, or something that was weird about us, or what have you. Perhaps also, maybe there was a situation that took place in the family dynamic that made us believe that there's no way I'm lovable because of something that happened, or there's no way I'm good enough because of whatever happened. Another indication, now you might only have one of these situations. You could have a couple of these situations, but the other indication is, you know, you're constantly feeling a sense of abandonment. So feeling as though people are going to abandon you, betray you, leave you. And a lot of times in those situations, what do? We either just, you know, try to tackle them, Velcro to them, right? Because we don't want them to leave us. And eventually, because they're suffocated, they'll leave. Or we leave first because we would rather leave them before they leave us, right? And so we might have multiple relationships where we leave. Maybe we are in a string of short-term relationships and we find fault with them very quickly, we move on, or we find ourselves in a string of relationships where we hold on for a very long time, eventually broken up with, it's very painful, and we walk that same line again. Another indication is some of you out there have a perfectionist attitude. You have this thing about perfectionism, and I think that's always very interesting. We have to have perfection. And it's interesting because usually that's because there were problems growing up. Maybe that was our way, the perfectionism was our way of trying to control things. Also, that might be the way that we think, that we're good. That's also a way of us holding back from delivering ourselves as an individual. Like we have to make it perfect before we do something. I know that some of us work on a project until it's like, work on it for 15 years. It's still not perfect. You're not going to show it. It's like having that art piece that you've worked on forever, but you still can't show it to a crowd. And I find that, we have a tendency to, there might be a tendency of being dishonest or inauthentic, not being true to ourselves, to gain acceptance from others or to gain approval from others. Maybe you feel like you're not good enough. Again, a lot of this goes back to not being good enough, right? A lot of this goes back to the fear of being oneself. A lot of this goes back to the fear of being hurt. A lot of this goes back to the fear of being alone, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being lonely. All these things go back to that, right? The desire to just fit in. And so this is normal. This is normal because many of us do deal with these types of core wounds. And, there's a lot of varying core wounds, but the core wound and then the core beliefs directly relate, right? So if we have this wound, our belief is as such. And I'll give you one example of a core wound before we go to break, and that is abandonment, right? There's something, and in the process of dealing with the core wound of abandonment, that core fear, right? Core wound, core fear, we feel that we're not good enough. We're not lovable enough. We're not we're not worthy, whatever that looks like. And we're going to be talking more about that when we return. Also, Dan's going to join me here later on in the third segment here. But I just thinking about this stuff. All of this is awareness, right? It's all awareness. That's all it is. This is awareness is key to our lives and our relationships. And that's all we're getting out here. So we're going to be continuing to have this discussion. Stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in. I'll be back this time. 2 shakes.
I hope you've enjoyed my history and lore tales here on Ashley's True Life Show. I know that there are many more amazing stories in your own family that we can discover in your tree. Hi, I'm Dan from Dancestors Genealogy. We take the hard part of discovering your family's passed away from you by doing all of the research. You and your family end up with a beautifully bound heirloom book to view and enjoy. As a longtime genealogist, my staff and I know precisely where to look. We know what to look for and to preserve your story. So consultations with me are always free. Create your family heirloom book for Mother's Day, Father's Day, or next Christmas by talking with me, Dan, at Dancestors Genealogy. So please reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
USA Radio News with Wendy King.
FBI Director Christopher Wray says the agency is currently investigating about 100 ransomware cases. The White House says President Biden views recent ransomware attacks as a national security concern. He told the Wall Street Journal that many of them are tied to criminals living in Russia. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says recent attacks targeting gas and beef suppliers have raised national security concerns.
New to us over the last couple of weeks, but it has been increasing rapidly around the world over the last several years.
She says President Biden will raise the issue of cybersecurity with Russian President Vladimir Putin when the two meet in Geneva later this month. He'll also meet with Queen Elizabeth, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and Turkish President Recep Erdogan on his trip to Europe next week. This is USA Radio News.
Rockstar Radio. Did you know this network is looking for their next rock star broadcaster? That's right, we are. And it could be you. It could be you interviewing the guests, talking to the newsmakers right in the middle of everything. Have you ever dreamed of being a rock star show host? Now could be your chance. Together with this station, we'll help you with everything you need. The studios, the equipment, your own producer, a co-host if you'd like, and so much more. Broadcasting is changing. There's never been a need for fresh voices and unique opinions like there is right now. You can do this. Our professional team will guide you every step of the way. Sound effects, show content, building your social network media, and everything you need to be the next rockstar broadcaster. Get all the details. Email bill@rockstar.today. That's bill@rockstar.today to get started on your
Hi, you've reached the cell phone of Dan Nelson.
Today. That's bill@rockstar.today. Don't wait. You could be the next voice for America. Email bill@rockstar.today.
I hope you've enjoyed my history and lore tales here on Ashley's True Life Show. I know that there are many more amazing stories in your own family that we can discover in your tree. Hi, I'm Dan from Dancestors Genealogy. We take the hard part of discovering your family's passed away from you by doing all of the research. You and your family end up with a beautifully bound heirloom book to view and enjoy. As a longtime genealogist, my staff and I know precisely where to look. We know what to look for and to preserve your story. So consultations with me are always free. Create your family heirloom book for Mother's Day, Father's Day, or next Christmas by talking with me, Dan, at Dancestors Genealogy.
I'm going to go in and plug you
so
in
please
here,
reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
Hey, travelers, do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call.
Yeah, we should probably
That's right.
start about a minute.
Call, because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at ridiculously low prices. Our prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find ridiculously low prices for you. Call SmartFares today and get the best price on your next flight. Guaranteed. Also, save up to 50% off business and first class tickets.
800-871-3291. 800-871-3291. Again, that's 800-871-3291.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. We've been talking in a positive way about core wounds today, and I know that's just like, oh my gosh, bring the room up. Come on. But I mean, this is stuff that we got to talk about. This is real stuff. And it's like, once we know that we have to just deal with this, it's just kind of a rite of passage. And I really do think that it is. Okay, I really do. And, the reason why we're on this planet is to learn more about ourselves and to understand why we're here and understand our purpose. And our purpose is understanding who we are. Okay, see, it's cyclical. That's what it is. Purpose is understanding who we are. Why are we here? Is to understand who we are and what we're doing here. And that's the basis of life. Show me another one. Because you know what? I've been researching this for a long time, and I feel like I'm right on point with this. Okay. And so right before the break, I was talking about some of the list of the core wounds. I was talking about abandonment, right? Many of us have a fear of abandonment. We feel like we're unlovable. We feel like people are going to leave us. We feel like, we're always being left. We feel like we're not good enough. People don't stick around. What about betrayal? Fear of being betrayed, again, goes back to the hopelessness, the unworthiness, the failure. These are very interesting. And a lot of times too, we, act a certain way or change the way we are based on different situations, based on the feeling or theory that we have to be a certain way. It's interesting because, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the sexual, many of us feel like we're unsafe, or we feel like we're punishable, or we deserve bad things, or we're not good people. And then rejection is a big one too, being rejected. I don't deserve love, or I'm not a good person, or I have to be perfect, or I'm never going to be, a part of it. I'm never going to be long. And so a lot of this goes back to understanding where this began. And a lot of this goes back to just seeing the truth. And that's all that's important, is just seeing the truth. That's where is to understand, okay, where did this start? What can I do? How do I understand it? How do I get through this? And some of us will talk about it as shadow work, right? There's shadow work, and the shadow self is an interesting concept in its own, because, we're basically embracing all aspects of ourself, right? We have these wonderful qualities of ourselves, but we also have these qualities that we push under the rug. And that's the thing that we have to really look at. And we have to understand that sometimes we repress that side of us. And then the repression of that becomes even harsher, even more troubling to deal with. And so it's like, we have to just get to that point where we can honestly understand. And I think, one of the things that I've realized is that, when we do feel like we're unworthy, okay, or we do feel like we're not good enough, or we do feel like we're not smart enough, or we do feel like there's something missing. I mean, why is that? I mean, it's like, it's identifying why that is. It's understanding. It's not sweeping it under the rug and going, oh, I don't feel good or comfortable about that situation, or I feel stressed out, or I don't want to deal with that. But it's like, those self-negating and those negative aspects of how we talk to ourselves is what we really need to investigate. And that's one of the things that's what I call the broken record, right? The negative broken record. It's like, a record is a song, like record songs are on records, right? But the thing is that when we have that negative broken record, it's that constant comment over and over again, or constant barrage of comments over and over again, that it's almost like a broken record, because it's the same thing day after day. And what happens is, a lot of times we don't realize that that is happening. We don't realize that those comments are in our brain. We don't realize that that's actually taking place. And so we don't realize that we're actually acting from it all the time. And that's something that we got to think about too, is that if we don't realize that we're acting from it, we don't actually realize that we're doing it. And I want us to always be aware of what we're doing. I want us to be constantly aware of who we are. I want us to be constantly aware of what's happening. And that's the key. And so it's like, if we can become aware, we can become powerful. If we can become aware, we can become successful. If we become aware, we can become comfortable in our own skin. And that's why we're talking about this today. It's not about harping on pain and agony from the past and bringing up all these pains, but it's really about the concept of really investigating ourselves. I mean, that's all it is. And that's what I think we have to really focus on. And that's where we have to go from there. Right. And so the childhood wounds that we're dealing with, whether it was based on abuse or neglect or violence or just being overwhelmed as a child, we have to figure out how to solve that. We have to figure out how to work with this. We have to figure out how to work with the situation. And that's key. Right? How do we heal those? How do we heal ourselves? How do we heal relationships? And it all starts with us. See, that's the key, is that I have folks go, well, I really want to make this relationship work. And that's awesome. That's awesome. But you know what? At the same point, we got to figure out how to make us work. We got to figure out what makes us tick. We got to figure out how to get to that level of understanding ourselves. And I think that once we get there and really get to understand where we're at, we can really understand who we are. And so, if you look at some patterns in your life, think about it. Do you have patterns with relationships? Do you have relationships that seem to be unsuccessful? Do you seem to be in relationships for a long period of time, even when you feel like the relationship is kind of falling apart? Do you feel resentful and angry because you feel as though you're giving so much of yourself and not getting anything back in return? I mean, these are questions to ask. Do you feel like you're being used or taken advantage of in your friendships? Think about it, because a lot of times when we feel like we're being used and taken advantage of, sometimes maybe we're not, but sometimes maybe we are. And it's because we've been giving so much. What about in our relationships where we allow people to walk all over us? What about in personal romantic relationships where we don't get our needs met, or we don't talk about our emotions, or we're not transparent with our emotions because of fear of, being made fun of, or even probably more precise is that we don't want to push the other person away. We're scared that they're going to take it wrong. We're scared that they're going to take it personally. We're scared that they're going to leave us. If we tell the truth, what if they leave us? What if they leave us? What if they actually leave us? What if that happened? And that's something that happens too. And that's where we get to that point where we're in such fear, because of this, that we allow people to do things in our life that maybe we wouldn't allow otherwise. Also, it's, a lot of times though, remember, it's kind of like, it's really like that blind spot. And that's why I'm talking about it. And I'm not going to give out so much information that's overwhelming and bombarding you today. But it's kind of a blind spot issue, right? Because we all have these amazing qualities about us. We all have this great stuff going for us. We all have things that are awesome. We all have things that we excel at. Okay. But then it's this other stuff that's just kind of the blind spot. It's like having that blind spot in the car, and it's right there, and you don't always remember it, right? You seldom remember it. You forget about it. And it's easier to solve other people's problems than our own, right? And so it's like we got to realize, like, a lot of times when we're triggered to get angry, or we're triggered to have resentment, or we're triggered to be upset by something, or we're triggered to take something personally, or we're triggered to make something perfect no matter what, those are some indications that there's something up. There's just something below the surface that hasn't really come yet out into fruition, into the front lines. You see what I'm saying? And that's the key. That's the key. And that's where we need to be at. And that's what I want us to really think about, because when we have these little triggers and we have these little anger pieces, or we have these times where we feel exhausted or overwhelmed or resentment or anger or challenged or overwhelmed or whatever that looks like, that's when we have to get there and say, okay, you know what? I see it for what it is. And that's what I have to deal with. And there's something at my core that's making me feel a certain way. And that's interesting, because once we realize there's something at the core, we realize there's something more. And that's why it upsets us. That's why it triggers us. So now let's talk about history. Let's talk about history right now, because we're going to be talking about some interesting history that relates with, psychology, pharmaceuticals, all kinds of interesting stuff. Dan Nelson, our resident historian. Dan, great to have you today. How are you doing?
Doing good, Ashley. Glad to be here.
Hey, glad to have you. I know that you're traveling and y'all stopped at a rest stop to make this reality happen. So I'm interested in what historical nuggets of information you have for us today.
Yeah, normally the words history and pharmaceuticals don't come across each other too often, but this particular story does, and I thought it'd be interesting to the audience there. But my great-great-grandfather, he served in the Civil War with the founder of the home of Prozac and other psychological drugs. So a name you probably all heard of was Eli Lilly, and he was an American soldier, pharmacist, chemist, and businessman. Of course, he founded the namesake company. So before he did all the businessman stuff, he enlisted in the Union Army during the American Civil War, and he recruited a company of men to serve with him in the 18th Independent Battery Indiana Light Artillery. That's a mouthful. So my great-grandfather, he kept a diary during the Civil War, and he kept copies of all of his letters home. And so we have all that. We have it all published in a book. And interestingly, in one of these books, he mentions Eli Lilly. And it appeared, by the way, the notes written, that he expected his wife to know also who Eli Lilly was. So I'm not sure how they knew each other before the war, because they lived about 140 miles apart. So not just, jump on the horse and go over there kind of deal. So this is the letter. This is the actual entry in his, or the letter that he wrote that day on July 5th, 1862, from Memphis, Tennessee, where their Union Army was occupying this southern town. So he says, the weather's pretty warm, but I guess we can stand it. He commented on the weather every single day. Says, this is fine country, well improved, and has good water. We have moved our camp into the city and are now camped in the Charleston Depot. Our company, that is Company E, is in the roundhouse. We are on patrol duty and are called provost guards. It is our duty to walk the streets and dispose of crowds and pour out all intoxicating liquors. For me, a part of this is rather unpleasant. I never like to be continually in the presence of those that hate me. So apparently the Southerners did not appreciate the Union Army occupying their town. It says, last evening, Sergeant Snodgrass with Eli Lilly and I was sent to a fine mansion to arrest the owner and a visitor, a Mr. King, for selling whiskey to soldiers and drinking toast to Jefferson Davis. Lilly took one and I took the other. I took Mr. King, but we had to force them along. They tried to delay us in every way. I at one time feared a crowd that seemed to be gathering around us, but we hurried up a little and all went well. We took them to the Irving block where the provost marshal's office was. As I turned Mr. King over to the prison guards, he gave me a silver $50, which, is probably like giving somebody $20 today, and asked to go and inform his wife where he would stay the night. It then being dark. I knew where he lived, and we went and did as he requested of me. When his wife opened the door, she appeared a little frightened, but thanked me very politely when I told her that Mr. King requested me to inform her that he would stay a night in the Irving block. And then he comments that we've since learned that both these men were each worth $100,000, which would be a multimillionaire today easily. And then his last comment is the Negroes, and he has a parentheses, slaves, of course, had a dance yesterday for us and a few others looking on. They numbered 400 or 500 and color ranged from jet black to white. They was well dressed, good dancers, and appeared to enjoy themselves. So this is a while before he later lost his eye in the Vicksburg campaign, and he could have used some of Eli Lilly's medicine at that point. But back to Lilly, he was promoted to major, then colonel. He was put in charge of a cavalry unit, and he was captured as in September 1864 and held as a prisoner of war until January 1865. After the war, he became one of those carpetbaggers, tried to run a plantation in Mississippi, but it failed. So he went back to his pharmacy profession. Got several business partners in Indiana in these pharmacies, and opened his own company, which manufactured drugs and marketed them on a wholesale basis to pharmacies. And he became quite wealthy doing this. And some of the early things he did that today we take for granted is he was the first to create gelatins to contain medicines and developing fruit flavoring. So you think about, how yucky drugs taste if you ever had to have them without that or medicine. He sort of tried to help with that. And they were the first to have a dedicated research department and put in a bunch of quality assurance procedures. He turned the management company over to his son, and he put his efforts into charitable stuff. So you read about people today, wealthy people doing that. He was an early contributor to charity. And the Eli Lilly Foundation stands today and is a big donor to causes. He was also an advocate of federal regulation of the pharmaceutical industry, and many of his reforms got put into law with the Food and Drug Administration. He was one of the pioneers of the concept of prescriptions. It used to just be anybody could get whatever drug if they had the money for it and knew where to get it, and particularly with addictive or dangerous medicines. So he was quite influential in terms of, today we just assume pharmaceuticals and prescriptions are part of everyday life, but we don't know how it got there. His company was the first to mass produce the polio vaccine, developed by Jonas Salk, and insulin also, and working with recombinant DNA. So currently they're the largest manufacturer of psychiatric medications and medics such as Prozac, Dolafine, which is methadone, Cymbalta, and Zyprexa. So quite a way since he was fighting in the Civil War. So that's the story of my great-great-grandfather hanging out with this eventual pharmaceutical magnate and leader in the development of pharmaceutical industry.
That's awesome. Wow, what a legacy there, Dan. Thanks for coming up with all that information. I think that a lot of us are very interested in that information, and most folks know about Eli Lilly, but they didn't know that, and the fact that they fought together is pretty powerful. So stay tuned. We'll be back. We'll be talking more about core wounds, live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. Will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
I hope you've enjoyed my history and lore tales here on Ashley's True Life Show.
Good job.
I know that there are many more amazing stories in your own family that we can discover in your tree. Hi, I'm Dan from Dancestors Genealogy. We take the hard part of discovering your family's passed away from you by doing all of the research.
Perfect timing. Perfect
You
timing.
and your family end up with
That
a
was
beautifully
interesting.
bound
Where are y'all heading right now?
heirloom book
y'all are in
to
California?
view and enjoy. As a longtime genealogist, my staff and I know precisely where to look. We know what to look for and to preserve your story. So consultations with me are always free. Create your family heirloom book for Mother's Day, Father's Day, or next Christmas by talking with me, Dan, at Ancestors Genealogy. So please reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
You've heard me talking about My Pillow for 3 years, folks. It's the truth. I get the best sleep of my life with a My Pillow. You can do it too. 60-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty, made in the USA. You'll sleep well or you'll get your money back. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, use my promo code USA, get 2 My Pillow premium pillows for the price of one, or call 1-800-951-8175. Get the best sleep of your life and do it now. You've heard me talking about My Pillow for 3 years, folks. It's the truth. I get the best sleep of my life with a My Pillow. You can do it too. 60-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty, made in the USA. You'll sleep well or you'll get your money back. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, use my promo code USA, get 2 My Pillow premium pillows for the price of one, or call 1-800-951-8175. Get the best sleep of your life and do it now.
It is interesting to see how the subjects on Ashley's True Life show and current events so often correlate with past events. As Ashley says, history often repeats itself. Our Ancestors genealogy research comes across great stories from the past that tie to families and our shared history regarding what happens in our country and our community. Ancestors clients have had ancestors that were colonizers, explorers, founders of religions, gunslingers, kings and queens, knights, pirates, heroic soldiers, witches, and witch hunters. Let's find out who the characters are in your family tree. So please reach out today by going to our website, www.dancestorsgenealogy.com. That's DANCESTORS genealogy.com, and fill out a contact request, and we'll get right back to you.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. Great show. It was great talking to Dan today. And, we were talking about core wounds, and we've been talking about, how they impact us and how to know that we're dealing with it. And one of the things that I've realized is that our feelings are very important, our feelings. And I don't like to get all, beaten down into feelings. I'm not over there like, oh, we got to talk about feelings all the time, But at the same time, our feelings do matter. And I think that a lot of times when we're dealing with core wounds, because we don't want to really deal with them, or let me take that back, because we haven't dealt with them. That's better said. I think it's a more appropriate. We don't really look at our feelings. And then when we do have feelings about certain things like sadness or frustration or, whatever that looks like, it's interesting because we don't really go into that feeling. We don't sit with that feeling. We don't understand where it began or why that feeling exists. We don't want to sit with it. We avoid it at all costs. Right? We don't want to sit with it. We avoid it at all costs because it scares us, because we don't want to deal with what's coming up from that. We don't want to deal with how that is connected to us. We don't want to deal with that. And so if we can sit with it a little bit, and a lot of times I like us to analyze and just write down some stuff. Journaling is very powerful because it takes the stuff out of your head and it puts it on paper. Okay, so you're able to write down some of your feelings, process them a little better than being sucked into a whirlwind of emotion, right? Process them. Being able to be mindful. So we have these feelings that come in, instead of like pushing them under the rug, or instead of, trying to suppress them, or instead of doing something to try to quiet them, like alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, just sitting with it for a moment, writing down some thought. Where's this coming from? Where's this feeling coming from? Why do I have this feeling? Many of us run from our feelings because we don't want to deal with it. But when we run from our feelings, we're running from ourselves. Our feelings are just, symptoms of there's a situation that we need to be aware of. Also just being mindful, being able to be aware of when we have a thought, when we have a feeling, when we're having an actual physical discomfort, when we have a thought in our mind that keeps swimming around and it doesn't seem to go away. Why does that thought keep coming around? Because it wants you to listen. There's something going on. And sometimes what we hear, we don't want to hear, but it's like, where is that coming from? Why am I hearing that? There's only so much that you can numb something. There's only so much you can do. It keeps coming back anyway. So it's like, we got to deal with it at some point. I mean, eventually we want to walk on that rug and not have a bunch of crap under it, and fall and twist our ankle because all the stuff we have under the rug. We want to have it where there's nothing under the rug anymore. I think also being able to have some introspection and being able to spend time on our own. And that's hard for a lot of us, right? We don't want to be alone. Scared to be alone. Oh God, what am I going to find out if I'm alone? I don't want to learn anymore. Maybe I want to learn something horrible about myself. Well, really? I don't think you're going to learn anything horrible about yourself. I think we already kind of know stuff. It's just now we're just going to process it and get it out and try to walk through it and not cringe all the time when we have it, or not try to run away from it or try to busy ourselves, right? We're going to actually kind of step up to the plate and take ownership of it. The interesting thing, and I want to bring an opportunity here, because I think that sometimes we see this stuff as just like a challenge. We see it as overwhelming. We see it as a horrible challenge. We see it as all these problems and issues. It's really not a challenge. It's really not a challenge. Right? Really, honestly, what it is it gives us a right of an opportunity, a right of passage to try to figure out something about ourselves. Because if we had everything figured out in this lifetime, what would be the purpose of being here? If we had everything figured out, what would we be learning? And so I think that if we actually accept the fact that this is a learning opportunity and look at it from those different levels, we begin to see the power that we have. And we begin to realize that we actually, too, can solve something of great interest for us that can change our lives forever. But only we have the key to this. Nobody else can do it for us. People can help us. You can find, I work with clients to do this. You can find another life coach. You can find a therapist. You can find someone that does EMDR. You can find all kinds of people that will help you, that have resources to help you. But in the end, you have to do it. And that's what's so powerful. So I appreciate you listening to the show. I hope that the show has impacted you in some positive way, where you've found something, or said, you know what, it's time for me to start journaling and start seeing myself, start expressing myself, and start understanding where this is coming from. Because guess what? I deserve it, because I deserve to know more about myself. Don't forget to live your true life and live your true life perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back in. Well, I'll be back this time in 3 shakes. Thank you, Brittany. Good work.
See how the subjects on Ashley's.
Great show today. Thank y'all for tuning in. I hope that y'all are having a wonderful weekend so far. I have some client meetings right after here in 1 minute starting. But I did want to say thank you for tuning in. We will have our live show, a commercial free. Let me see. I don't have the chat open here. Commercial free Thursday. So we'll be doing the show on Thursday. Normal time at 6, about a little after 6. I like to do it a little after the hour, because I know that some of you are getting home from work, or 6. So about 6:15, and I have a session that bumps up right to that. So do that around then. I want to reach out to Sohan. Great to hear from you. Great to hear from you. Hey Larry, great to hear from you. Maria, great to hear from you. Gil, great to hear from you. Laura, great to hear from you. I love that. Naz, great to see you. Jacqueline, great to see you. Thank you. Joel, great to see you. Thank you so much. Nelson, great to see you. Yes, good comment there. I appreciate your comment. Yeah, and that's so true. Nella, great to see you. James Oren, great to see you. Tony, great to see you. I appreciate you tuning in. Maria, great to see you. It's interesting, and I appreciate that comment, Tony, as well. And Craig, great to see you. I appreciate all y'all's comments. Thank you so much. I feel like this is just responsible information, right? It's just us being able to figure out who we are. And that's the thing is that the greatest thing is that some of the stuff, like some of our relationships and some of the stuff that we encounter, the coolest thing about it is it becomes like this pain point, but yet it's kind of that indicator. Like, it's like the indicator is something there. And it gives us the opportunity to see through things. Even if we have a blind spot, there's this other thing there because of this other person or because of the situation we're seeing with this other person or the situation. It begins to open our mind to the fact that there is something there, and that's okay. I mean, life, the idea of having perfection and having a perfect life, it's not realistic. And I don't think that it's wanted. I mean, because once something's perfect or there's nothing there, what do you work on anymore? What's the opportunity there? What's the reason for being here? And I don't think that there's anything necessarily, it's like perfect is one of those words like normal. And I just don't think that perfect and normal really exist. And I think that perfect and normal, to be quite honest with you, are, just kind of not real. I think these are words that we've given ourselves, to create even a deeper problem and find even more problems with our life. Right? If I want everything to be perfect and I don't feel like I'm normal, then that's even a greater issue that I got to overcome. And that's what I really feel is kind of happening, is that I think that we're all trying to pigeonhole ourselves into being somebody. And we all feel like something that's wrong with us is something wrong with us. And we feel like, oh, it's horrible. Or the way we feel like somebody called us ugly or somebody made fun of us or somebody made fun of something that's really unique about us. And it's like we have to get to the point where, yes, we know that that's the broken record, but realizing that the core wounds are based on, extreme. So they're based on black and white thinking. It's based on extreme. Nobody will ever love me. That's an extreme thought, right? Anytime that we have no one will ever, never, always, these are all indications that this is something that we believe that's not true, because it cannot be true. It's impossible to be true. And beginning to see that, and I know that some of you out there are like, it's hard for me to be able to get past these core wounds. I mean, and I get it. I understand that. And we're going to be talking more about this here, on social media, be talking more about this on the show, because I just wanted to slowly get into this so we can start working through this. I wanted us to slowly get into this so we can start journaling. I want us to slowly work on this because all of us have something to this degree, and some of us have been working on it for a while. Some of us are just now beginning to work on it. Some of us are just now realizing this exists. It's time. And so it's time that we all kind of work on it together. And there's no right place or wrong place. So there's no place you should have been already. It's not like that. Like, don't start putting that on yourself where you're like, well, I should have been working on this years ago. Well, no, okay. We can all beat ourselves up over things, but come on. You know what I'm saying? Let's just jump in and say, okay, you know what? I could have been working on this before, but now is the right time because it's come into my mind and it's the right time for me to work on it. It's the right time for me to work on this. It's the right time for me to see this information. So let's start working on this. Let's start connecting with this information. Darren, so good to hear from you. Craig, again, so good to hear from you. Man in a pit, good to hear from you. My new mantra, drama detox. Oh, I like that. That's good. Drama detox. It's time to detox from the drama. And so let's do this. And I'm glad that, Darren, thank you. I'm glad that the streams keep you going. And this is, I'm glad that y'all have tuned in and just let's start working on this stuff. It's not a pain point. I know it's hard to see that. It's an opportunity. But if we can start turning it around and realizing, okay, I can learn a lot about myself. And I can also learn that, hey, I might have been perfect when I was first born, but, I might have gotten screwed up by some people in the process. And now I got to clean the slate because guess what? This is me. It's my life. And I owe it to myself to do that for my life. Okay. So I hope this show has helped you. We'll be back on Thursday for the live show where there will be a video that comes out probably Monday or Tuesday. And we will be talking about the 5 love languages. There'll be a video, also an extended video for members on love languages and taking that to the next level as well. So we'll be doing that live show 6:15 on this Thursday coming up Central, 7:15 Eastern, 4:15 Pacific. So I look forward to seeing y'all there, hopefully. And let me know if you have any thoughts on content for that as well. So I definitely want to respect and give credence to what y'all would like to talk about. Colin, so great to have you here as well. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Maria, Tony, Nila, great to see you. Everybody, thank you. Nelson, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great one. Laura, great to see you. Joel, great to see you. Naz, great to see you. Hey, Larry, great to see you. Sohan Chowdhury, great to see you. So y'all have a great one. Let me know if I can help in any way. You can always message me. You can go to ashleyburgess.com, Ashley, Berges. Go to the contact little tab, and you can send me a message. Have a great one. Love y'all. Don't forget to live your true life. That's what we're working on in here. Okay. Bye.